Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round number 10 of the 2013 16th Street Racing League, powered by International Light Technologies. After the thrilling finish we had at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the craziness of the Milwaukee Mile just 1 week ago, Matt Cook still leads the championship. However, the gap between himself and Tim Holgate, that is just 12 points. Joshua Chin was able to make the most of difficult days for both Cook and Holgate 1 week ago, and he's been able to close that gap to just 27 points between himself and the championship lead. And today, going to a road course, Chin arguably is the favourite to take victory here today. Courtney Taylor and Ryan Murray, well, they're not out of the championship charge just yet, and there's plenty to race for here today. 41 laps, upstate New York, Watkins Glen International, one of the most popular road courses in all of North America. And I tell you what, drivers absolutely love this racetrack. Qualifying taking place right now, and we've had the odd number cars. They have already gone out and made their qualification lap. Joshua Chin currently is the fastest guy, and he has a 1.4 second advantage over anyone in the field. Currently in P2 is Matt Cook, with James Swinbank provisionally in the third position, Chad Peterson in fourth, and David Sockrider just moving himself up into the fifth position as Holgate moves himself right up into P2 just as I say that. Will Vinton, along with Aaron Likins, will be with you throughout the course of this broadcast. Aaron, we've already talked about this, but no one can hear us. We'll talk about it again. Today, really, you had to think was going to be Josh Chin's advantage. However, Tim Holgate and Matt Cook, they have brought the charge here today, and they are lining up P2 and 3 if qualifying was to end right now.
Is there any fitting way for a race to start than to have our three championship contenders all starting up front together? Last week they were scattered all throughout the field. This week, as of right now, they're going to start 1, 2, 3, and for Josh Chin right now, wow, a 1.4 second lead, and he's not doing this. This field is stacked. These drivers are great, so for Josh Chin to have that big of an advantage, wow, he laid down an amazing lap.
I tell you what though, right now the gap between Tim Holgate and Matt Cook is 26 1/1000ths of a second. That really is about, I don't know, half a foot on this racetrack. So the two closest championship rivals are separated by nothing. And back at round number 1, Homestead Miami Speedway, I said that the driver who will win this championship is going to be the one who will be most consistent. Now, Matt Cook isn't known as a road ringer. However, he really has brought his aim game here today. But you alluded to this before we went on air. This arguably is one of the easier tracks to become acclimatized to. However, it's also one of the easiest to make a mistake on.
Yeah, I closed the broadcast last week. My final thoughts were that this racetrack, for oval drivers, for oval experts, this is the easiest track to get acclimated to. You really don't have too many decreasing radius corners or just complicated, complex sections. This track is really straightforward. Yet at the same time, it's like an oval because the walls are right there. Sometimes the runoff is maybe 2 feet, if even that. So if you drop a wheel off, if you touch the grass and it snaps your car a little bit, you're immediately hitting the wall and your race is over just like that.
So far, a total of 29 cars have set themselves a qualifying lap. The field is set by about 6 seconds. However, if you take away Michael Armstrong, the number 14 car, that comes down to about 5 seconds on the racetrack. One of the crazy things, however, in the transfer race earlier on today, James Swinbank won by 43 seconds. In fact, he's just moved himself up into P2 in qualifying, as Holgate getting all forms of sideway there through the boot corner of the racetrack. Dennis DeReese, however, crashed out on lap number 4, will take no part in today's proceedings, and arguably was the one guy who could really take the charge to Josh Chin.
Yes, he had the pole earlier this year at Sebring, and things didn't work out for him there, and the bad luck continues, and that shows you, a driver of his caliber, this track is so easy to get wrong. And one thing for Joshua Chin, he's going to have to be aware of that tonight. He right now has a 1.1 second advantage over P2, but this is the track of all tracks that if your mind slips for just a tenth, we saw Young O last year make probably the only mistake he made all of last season. with him actually crashing out, which is just unheard of. But that happened here, and this is the track. Just because we see Josh Chin with a big advantage, don't think it's going to be smooth sailing.
Oh no, definitely not indeed. To give you a quick look at this racetrack, we are running on the traditional IndyCar boot layout here, which means that we have that chicane called the inner loop, which Tim Holgate is just actually going through right now. In total, 12 corners on this racetrack. Track temperature is 78 degrees Fahrenheit. There is a northerly wind of 2 miles an hour, and race humidity is 55%. Track length is 3.37 miles in length. Drivers are limited to 13.4 gallons of fuel in their tanks, and that works out to be that they have to pit about every 12 to 13 laps in this 41 lap race. So we really are expecting to see a wide range of varieties here, but no fuel saving, which I think is going to make some great racing here today.
Yeah, we saw earlier at Sebring earlier this season fuel strategy. We talked about it the entire race with 2 stops, 3 stops, and really today we're going to see everybody going for it and going for it throughout the entire field. The biggest gap right now is between first and second, but if we look, we have from 5th place to about 23rd. It's only 1.8 seconds, so we have 20 cars separated by just 1.8 seconds. This race throughout the field is gonna be awesome as Courtney Terrell moves up into P3 with a great time of 1:30.3537.
Indeed, but Josh Chin still has a 1.1 second lead over the entire field. Crazy stuff here. Checkered flag is out. Guys on a qualifying lap, well, they can finish it off. David Stockride is on a lap, as is Dan Blake, Randy Crosno, Terry McTinson. Terry McTinson does not improve his time, so he will start in the 21st position. Randy Crosno, let's see whether he can improve on his current P9 as he comes out of the final corner for his final lap. He'll come past the start-finish line. What will it be for Crosno in that number 10 car? It will be a 1:31. He does not improve his time either. David Stockride, it doesn't look as though he is going to go any faster either. He's currently sat in the P6 position, and we are just going to wait for him. He's working himself now up into turn number 9. Now, arguably, Aaron, this is one of the most difficult corners on the racetrack. Turn 9 and turn 6. As you leave the traditional track and you get back onto that part of the racetrack, they are two of the most complicated corners on the entire circuit.
Oh, that downhill left-hander, the first turn of the boot. So easy to lose the rear under braking there, and then getting back out of the boot to rejoin where NASCAR decides that they don't want to run on that part of the track. Getting back onto that part of the track, it is so easy to spin the rear tires. It's so easy to clip the curb and loop it that way. And if you encounter lap traffic, which we have plenty of cars here today, lap traffic, you do not want to meet them in either of those 2 corners, especially you don't rejoining the track, as you alluded to, turn 9. It's so easy for a car in front to loop it, and it's a blind corner as you come around, and there can be a car parallel in the track, and really you have really no reaction time whatsoever.
Let's then run through your starting grid for round number 10 of the 2013-14 16th Street Racing League, powered by International Light Technologies. Starting on pole position, the only driver to get into the 1:29, Joshua Chin in the number 93 Banshee Autosports car, and then alongside him in the number 26 Aero X Racing Machine will be James Swinbanks. Courtney Terrell and Tim Holgate line up on row number 2, Matt Cook and David Stockrider in row number 3. Chad Peterson and Paul Jenkins in row number 4, with Randy Crosno and Christopher Demerit in row number 5. Brandon Lichtenberg, Connor Cross in row number 6, with Joe Barge and Nell McBride in row number 7. Row 8, it's an all-Canadian row with Pierre Bourdon and Eric Davis. Then row number 9 is Neff Riag and Douglas E. Smith. In row number 10, Matt Kingsbury, Ray Kingsbury, the brothers, starting alongside each other. And then Terry McTinson, Tim Miller in row number 11. Row 12, Brad Sanford, Cam Blake. Row 13, Brian Simpson and Vic Cordrell. Row number 14, Dave Jinks and Kevin Kress. And then bringing up the rear, Michael Armstrong in the 29th position. We're getting set to go racing for 41 laps here today at Watkins Glen International. Track length 3.37 miles and 12 corners around this beautiful, majestic racetrack set in upstate New York. Don't forget, this broadcast is brought to you by International Light Technologies, presenting partner of the ILT Road Course Championship, also in part by iRaceForLife.org. Through the 16th Street Racing League's partnership with iRaceForLife.org, the winner of the race will get $10 donated to their charity of choice. And of course, don't forget, this race also brought to you by the Will and Dave Show. It is available every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, live and exclusive on Glacier TV. The greatest hour of comedy podcasts you'll see or hear all week long. Aaron, cars working themselves behind the pace car, and it's actually our first rolling start on a road course this season. We're coming up now to probably the second big danger point. Cars already come through turn number 1, but they'll head themselves now down into the inner loop. And this is where the cars have got to be very careful.
Very careful on this first lap from turn 1 all the way here. All drivers are going to be really anxious. Turn 1 is very difficult here. Lots of cars like to take it really wide, and there's plenty of road out there to do that, but they're going to have to come back on, and if the car on driver's right they don't understand that there's a car out there, you can have contact. And I think last year here we had a good 8-9 car wreck early on in the race with that. And then in the inner loop, so often with the draft here, the cars behind are going to be going faster than the cars in front. If they misstretch the braking zone, we're going to have an issue there as well. So first 30 seconds of this race going to be tense for all involved.
And for your championship contenders, Josh Chin, Tim Holgate, Matt Cook, they're going to be glad they're in the top 10. For Matt Cook, he was starting on the inside. Tim Holgate on the outside. Josh Chin from pole position. Those guys, I think, are going to be happy that they're starting where they are. Of course, let's not forget, back at Sebring, Matt Cook and Courtney Tell did have a moment down at turn number 3. So both those drivers are hoping they're not going to have a repeat performance of that.
Oh yeah, both drivers, especially Matt Cook, both Courtney Terrell and Matt Cook have really surged down the road courses from where they were at the start of the season. Matt Cook, I remember earlier this year, said if he just finishes a road course race, he'll be happy, but he has quickly learned these things and has become a championship contender, not just on the ovals, but now here on the road courses. He's not a one-dimensional driver. Same thing with Courtney Terrell, great starting spot. He's going to be starting P3, and we're just 3 turns away from starting this race, and this start, wow, it's going to be good.
Yeah, this is the critical corner as well in that first lap. Turn number 10. As the cars come up the hill, they'll still be tightly packed around here. So one driver makes a mistake. In fact, John Goke made a mistake on the opening lap of the transfer race. 3 drivers got caught up in that incident, and drivers are really lucky to get through it in some cases. I know Cam Blake had to literally crawl to a stop, as did Brad Sanford, in order to avoid that one. However, pace car is going to make itself down on towards pit road. Josh Chin on the inside of row number 1. James Winbanks alongside him, and an honour to Peyton Manning. Here we go, here at Watkins Glen as the cars all storm down into turn 1 for the first time. Chin gets the early lead. Winbanks a little bit sideways. Matt Cook's going to try and get himself past. Then Tim Holgate, he thinks better of it. And we have a big crash. Randy Crossley, Paul Jenkins, both involved in that. Pierre Bordeaux, by the look of it as well. A huge crash down at turn 1. Eric Davis, Douglas E. Smith, Mel McBride is on the grass. And that is what we were worried about there, Aaron. And you get one car go off, it's always a chain reaction. And it looked as though, I'm just trying to have a look back at the replay to see what happened. I think Crossley got himself a little bit sideways there. And that's what he caught his teammate there, Paul Jenkins. And from then, carnage.
And we saw this, that section of the track is so thin that really, if one car has trouble, it's going to be multiple cars having trouble, as we saw, and this might be one of our biggest first lap incidents we've had on a road course, and for those involved, so unfortunate, and that really has spread out our field.
Yeah, replay is up on your screen, and it just seemed to be that cold tyres is where things happen there. And of course, cold tyres at the start of these races, always difficult. You saw your top 5 drivers all sliding through turn number 1. It just seems to be like cross nose. He got onto the gas on the exit corner. His car just veered a little bit to the left. And poor Paul Jenkins, he's had some horrible luck this season. His race is done early as well. We'll give you an update of all the cars who will be out of the race in a moment. But as it stands right now, Josh Chin already up to a 1.3 second lead over James Swinbank. 3rd place, Courtney Terrell. 4th place, Tim Holgate. 5th place, Matt Cook. 6th place, David Stockrider. 7th place, Chad Peterson. 8th place, Joe Branch. 9th place, Christopher Demerit. And then in 10th place is Neff Riyadh. But you're completely right. Some of these guys, they had to pretty much come to a complete stop. And this field is really spread out. I think all the way back now from about Brian Simpson in 15th. Those guys literally got themselves down to nothing there. 0 miles an hour. And they're already half a minute behind your race leader.
And they had to come to a complete stop. The track was literally blocked with cars sliding, smoking, flipping. And for the drivers that survived, they may be 20-30 seconds behind, but that definitely beats the alternative. Meanwhile, we did have a change for 3rd place. Tim Holgate had a great pass entering the inner loop, so moved Holgate up to 3rd place. So for the championship, that now has an extra car between him and Matt Cook.
Indeed, and that's one of those things that Holgate is going to be banking on here. He knows that Matt Cook is not as accomplished on the road courses. He's not had as much experience, and Holgate, I think, will be hoping to get a little bit of that advantage in the championship back, especially knowing how dominant Matt Cook has been on some of the oval events this season, of course, winning back-to-back races a little bit early on in the championship. But Chin, he's been able to get that gap already over 2 seconds. Holgate is about 1.7 seconds behind James Swinbanks right now. And I think that Swinbanks being that wild card in this race, I think that Cook's hoping that he's going to help soften that blow a little bit. Because, of course, more points between 2nd place and 3rd place than 3rd place to 5th.
Oh, that is going to be a very good thing. And so many things this year we've talked about and say at the end when we get to Auto Club, that's going to be the championship deciding factor. So many of these small things can do it. And for Holgate today, he typically has been a driver that makes minimal mistakes, but we saw at Barber, we saw at Indy, we saw at Milwaukee. Tim Holgate has lost so many points on just small mistakes. And this race today, he has got to hunker down. He's got to hit his marks, and he's got to bring this car home on the podium. So, the way it stands right now is we have cars out the race. Vic Cordial is on pit road. Dave Jinks out. Pierre Bourdon out. Paul Jenkins, substantial damage. Randy Cosno out of the race. And Matt Kingsbury is pretty much out of the race as well, as is Ray Kingsbury. So both the Kingsbury brothers involved in incidents early on the road. It does look as though that Matt is going to try and bring his car back out onto the racetrack. And that's going to have some big implications as far as the mid-pack of the championship is concerned. Also, drivers who are going to be inside and outside the top 25 in points. Right now, battles going on the racetrack. There's not too many, but you've got some interesting stuff going on the rear end of the top 10. Some of these guys, though, will be thinking, okay, we are already 20 seconds behind the race lead. We would rather just try and close on that gap back rather than fighting nose to tail with each other. Although, now McBride and Tony Matinson have been having a little bit of a battle, and it looks as though McBride is catching Brandon Lichtenberg right now. And this track can be very tricky on, do you push it or do you just follow? This track, with this long straightaway, it can be easy to, every lap, just flip-flop positions. So you really have to judge, is it worth potentially battling and losing some seconds, or can you, maybe draft up, maybe not fight each other, and try to catch that car in front?
And Josh Chin, the gap is still 2.6 seconds. It kind of leveled down, but Swinbanks is in a bit of traffic right now. And of course, with this field spread, traffic's going to come into play early. Carry on.
And yeah, for Josh Chin, this has been a very hectic lap as 3 cars came out of the pits that were damaged. So Josh Chin, I'm sure his eyes were wide open because he didn't know the condition of those cars. So this lap, a very timid lap there. And same things for Swinbanks now. It's only 1 car separates him and the leader.
And of course, race director Scott Manifal will be keeping an eye out on these drivers. If they drop below 105% of racing speed, then they will be black flagged and asked to bring their cars back onto pit road. Chin still leads the way, although one of the things we will talk about actually, some of the lines he drivers take into turn number 1. There are a variety of lines here. And Chin, you do see him going all the way out there. onto that kind of asphalt on the exit of turn one, but Swinbank's really getting held up there behind. I believe that is Douglas E. Smith there. Smith holds that car all the way to the inside, but you catch a slow car on that run for turn 2, 3, and 4, there's no way you're going to be able to get past, because running too wide in these cars, always going to be treacherous.
Oh, always, and that's the thing, as we progress through this race, lap traffic here, if you catch them in the wrong spot, other tracks at maybe a tenth, a quarter of a second, you can lose 1, 2, maybe even 3 seconds if you catch a car wrong here. There's just some places where you can't make a pass, and through the S's, the worst thing that could happen is for the lap car to try to let you by and maybe lift off the gas and make it a too-wide situation. It just isn't going to work.
Right now, you've got Chad Peterson and David Stockrider. They are battling for 6th position on the racetrack. Now, last time by, Stockrider was able to go about half a tenth of a second faster than Peterson, but they are also catching Matt Cook right now. And in fact, Matt Cook is starting to eke out a bit and trying to close down a little bit, actually, Courtney Terrell. But I have to say, Courtney Terrell back to about Chad Peterson. These guys are very closely matching speed, and we did see that in some way through qualifying as well.
And this is going to be something to watch the entire race. Not only is it a race for the last run on the podium and a top 5, but championship implications. And you know full well Holgate and Cook are fully aware of what, as Holgate got on top of the curb out at turn 1, and that's another thing to watch. You can use that curb, and it's sometimes better to go all the way on the other side of that curb, because you can sort of almost grind the car, high-side it on the curb, and when the curb ends, your car, it could shoot either left or right in an erratic fashion, so close one there for Holgate.
And Holgate actually almost binned it. He caught a white line. His car had a big wiggle as he came down into the inner loop, and the point that you're making, of course, any viewers to Glacier TV or to iRacing Brazil will remember the World Championship Series race, the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series race here at the Glen. And a couple of drivers had huge mistakes down at turn number 1 just because of their car grounding over that curb. You pretty much lose all of your steering and your car will just shoot off in any random direction. And a couple of those drivers know what happened in WCS, and they will be paying attention to their cars over the course of this race. But I think we're going to go back to that thing that we were talking about earlier on, and about how fine the line is between getting good lap times and binning it. Holgate was very, very close there to binning that car in the inner loop.
And I'm watching Holgate right now, and he is on the absolute limit. If I'm his spotter right now, I'm going to tell him, hit your marks, run consistent lines. I think Courtney Terrell has closed in just a little bit, and Holgate is pushing the car just a little bit, and this has been his downfall at so many races. Just
remember Barber?
Barber, Milwaukee last week. Just he really could have a commanding points lead if it weren't for just some very mild errors. His errors haven't been that big, but big enough to really have a huge impact. And that curb and the white lines here, he's got to, I said it earlier, hunker down and finish on the podium. He's got to do that, but really he can't let Courtney Terrell get to his head. Right now, Courtney Terrell is just stalking him. And
Courtney Terrell, of course, needs all the points he can get as well. He's 4th in the championship. He's a little bit outside of the running for the time being, but any mistakes from Chin, Holgate, or Cook, and he can be right back in the hunt. The same way that we're talking about Josh Chin 1 week ago being just a little bit outside the championship hunt. That'll turn around in the space of 1 race. So Terrell, I think, will deliberately be trying to put as much pressure as he can on Tim Holgate to try and get that unforced error. Of course, Josh Chin will be getting himself back into the championship frame if this race was to finish right now. But I think Courtney Terrell, is deliberately just stalking Holgate right now to try, and remembering, of course, he knows that Holgate's made mistakes early on in this season, unforced errors under pressure. So if I was Courtney Terrell's spotter, I would like keep that pressure up as much as you can. Terrell running P4.
Running P4, and that's sort of what Courtney Terrell, of all the drivers that I've seen last year and this year, he is a great driver to get the car to the finish line. He isn't going to do anything to Holgate that's going to jeopardize both of their races. He's going to be solid, and at the same time, Holgate knows that, and when you have a car behind you, lap after lap, and you're looking in your mirror and the gap is the same, it gets to you. You want to get away. You want to extend that gap, because you know if you slip, that car is going to be right there. And right now, Terrell, I think, he might be a little bit faster, but he's just going to be content and just stalk. That's really the best way to put it right now. He's just stalking Holgate and mirroring almost the line and the lap times.
Behind there, Matt Cook still runs in the 5th position. In fact, that 3 cars of Holgate, Terrell and Cook have now been able to pull away from David Tockrider and Chad Peterson. Peterson is still all over the rear of David Tockrider. Last time he was about 0.2 of a second quicker. And I've got to be thinking here that perhaps Tockrider is just holding up Chad Peterson a little bit, because his lap times have struggled a little bit over the last couple of laps. I think if he can get past, he can perhaps get back onto that train. As in fact, Matt Cook makes a pretty substantial mistake there in turn number 10. And we talked about turn 10 early on in this race. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get a replay up of what just happened to Matt Cook there. But it's one of those things that if you try and get the power down a little bit too early, you clip that inside curve, it just wiggles the car, upsets the balance of the curve, and every corner on this racetrack is backed slightly differently as well. Of all of the corners where that car doesn't feel right, it is always turn number 10.
Turn 10, and that lap time, I'm sure that is where Josh Chin right now is really gaining. There are so many turns in racing that you can't gain time, you can only lose it. But turn 10 here, you can really separate yourself from the entire field if you can get that turn down and if you can apply the power and really shoot out, because the run there from that turn all the way to the finish line, so much momentum can be gained, and that turns the real separator. Another aspect, as the fuel burns off, the way it handles there at the start may not be the way it is at the end of the run, and that could be David Sockrider at the start of this run was really on the trio of Cook, Terrell, and Holgate, and he's fallen off, and Sockrider really has had issues, and as Chad Peterson's car has really come on there. So right now I think turn 10 is the real separator.
And in fact, I talked to a couple of drivers before this race, and some interesting strategy options going on as Sockrider gets sideways there and up into turn number 10. Peterson was not able to capitalize because it's always very difficult. Unless the car actually goes wide, there's not really much you can do. You just have to kind of slam on the brakes and figure out what direction the car ahead of you is going to do. But it's really allowed Peterson to get himself within draft range now. And I'm thinking, if Peterson can just nail turn 1, this could be his opportunity to try and set up Sockrider for a pass down into the inner loop. Peterson in the number 37 broken aero machine. Also the Apex as he works himself through turn number 2 right now, closing that gap up to David Sockrider. All of these cars, of course, are likely going to run different downforce levels. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in this broadcast. But Peterson doesn't look as though he's gaining much. Will he try and slide down the inside? Not this time. And Peterson doesn't seem to gain much there in the draft at all. But look how good he is there through the inner loop compared to Sockrider.
I love the way Peterson just peered out just a little bit. That will get into the drivers in front. Oh, almost made contact under braking, and that's one of the trickiest places for braking, especially when you get up behind somebody. You lose a little bit of that front downforce, and where you normally brake, you need to back it up just a little bit, and we just about Peterson gets loose. He is on it.
He really is on it. And, of course, different downforce levels for all of these cars, and the car off there. I'm not quite sure who it was. Courtney Terrell off there in the number 18 IMS Productions car. And I'm just trying to figure out what happened. I think he had to avoid Tim Holgate because Holgate was going very slowly there. And it almost looks as though, yeah, Holgate completely missed his braking. And Terrell just had one option. That was go off into the dirty stuff.
It looks like Holgate might have braked a little bit later and had to get on harder. And Terrell might have been using Holgate as a reference, and since Holgate went in a little bit deeper, Terrell just wasn't prepared for it, and good thing for Terrell is he's still in this race. That could have been disastrous. It
really could have been, and I'll tell you what, Courtney Terrell would have had a heart-in-the-mouth moment, but now he is right behind this battle with Sockrider, and Sockrider's going to look down to the inside of Chad Peterson as they come down into the inner loop. I think Peterson's just going to let him go here. But it's always difficult when you make that move down into the inner loop because you have such a tight radii into the corner, and you really have to use the curbs as much as you can. Low curbs here compared to back at Barber Motorsports Park where you had high curbs, and you really couldn't. Peterson all over the rear there. Almost ran him over down into turn number 7. But, as we're saying, low curbs down into the inner loop, and you've got to be careful when you think about that, because if you try and go on the inside line, all of a sudden you've got to take a completely different line through the chicane itself.
And another thing you said, they went side by side. He's going to let him by. Side by side here in the inner loop does not work. Will not work. If we see side by side and they get through it A-OK, make a replay, put it on YouTube, because it is a very rare occurrence. It simply will not work. If you get a car on your inside, you got to let them go and hope that, yeah, since their line is different and they're going to have to use curbing, maybe they aren't going to be able to get a good exit. Maybe they're going to overcook it and end up in the gravel. So side by side there, Peterson did the right thing, let Sock Rider go.
Christopher Merritt retires from the race, and in fact, we'll talk about this incident a little bit. He lost it a couple of laps ago down at turn number 8, toe corner, the middle part of the boot section. And he just got a little bit loose coming onto the power. In fact, I've done this under practice myself. Get himself into the Armco barrier. Just a very light tap, actually. Brings the car onto pit road, but that was his race over. He was able to drive the car back out onto the racetrack, but stopped down at the inner loop. Too much damage to his race car, and that really does show how, at any given moment, your car can just get a little bit loose. You touch the Armco barrier, it is game over. And, of course, the banking, I talked about this a minute ago. Every single corner of this racetrack has a degree of banking. Down at toe corner, it's almost a little bit like the famous turn down at the Nordschleife. But the banking then falls away. You try and get on the power of the wrong part of the racetrack, that car's just going to spear to the right.
Spear to the right. Also, as you get on the gas, it's so easy to then drift the car out. And if your right rear clips the curbing, again, it can spear you to the right or spear you to the left. I've met both sides of the guardrail in that corner, unfortunately, but I'm sure many of the drivers in practice can say the same thing, and caught Demerit out this race.
Right, so Joshua Chin still leads away by 8 seconds now over James Swinbanks. In third position is Tim Holgate, fourth Matt Cook, fifth David Sockrider. Carry on.
And Chad Peterson's making a pit stop on lap 12. I believe he is our first car of the leaders to make a pit stop.
Yeah, Brad Sanford is on pit road, but he scored 2 laps down. He's had some issues. We do expect most people in this lap, however. So pit road is going to become a very busy place, as I see Connor Croft on pit road right now. And we say most of these cars are going to be on pit road, but we have got Brendan Lichtenberg. He's got some big rear wing damage to his race car right now. Just going to try and figure out what's happened to him. We are going to keep an eye out, though, on Josh Chin, because if he can go another lap, this is really going to put him on a very interesting fuel strategy, working himself on lap number 13. If he pits now, he'll then pit on lap 26 and lap 39. If he can do another lap on this stint, remembering he has to do the pace lap, then he potentially could do this on one less pit stop. We'll find out in the next 30 seconds or so, though, Aaron.
And that being so, maybe this could become a fuel mileage race. And if Chen can do it in 3 stops and somebody else can make it 2, we may just have somebody may just be able to eke out a win as Chen enters the pits.
Yep, so Josh Chin is on pit road. Let's see whether or not James Swinbanks will follow him onto pit road. The answer is going to be yes. Tim Holgate is going to come onto pit road, as well as Matt Cook. Now, these cars got to get themselves down to 45 miles an hour. Looks like everyone was able to do that first time round. Of course, then you've got to make sure that you don't overshoot your pit box. It's a very slippery pit road here. Now, the interesting thing is some drivers might not take tyres in this first stint. I talked to them a little bit earlier on, as Josh Chin was a little bit bumpy off the jacks there. But Swinbanks onto pit road, Holgate on pit road, and Cook overshoots a little bit there.
Oh, speak of it, and it happens, and Holgate misses it as well.
He gets himself into reverse. He reversed out of his pit box.
Whoa.
I think that he selected the wrong gear, thinking he was going to overshoot. He didn't, but then he engaged the wrong gear for coming out of pit road. I've not seen that in a while.
I thought he had overshot it, which is, yeah, I saw him backing up. Not going to lose any positions, but wow, that again goes back to making those very minor mistakes. This time it's really not going to hurt him, but what we've seen all year is when he makes one of those small mistakes like that, it just seems to gradually get bigger, and this race, he's got to put it into that.
Yeah, and I think he's very lucky that Cook made a very similar mistake, so they kind of offset each other on the racetrack, but they came in as they came out. Now, Josh Chin, actually, he was very bumpy off the race, off of the jacks, and I haven't seen that before. I'm wondering, hopefully, he hasn't got any damage to his race car. Swinbanks comes out, of course, in second position. Then it's Holgate third, Cook fourth, and David Stockwell in fifth. Now, next projected pit stop then is either lap 26 or 27. Then they'll probably pit again on lap 39 or 40. You might have one driver in this field try, I think, and do fuel saving. Perhaps just a little bit, but on a long race like this, still, this track you're on full throttle for so long, you lose about 2.5 seconds a lap just trying to fuel save, and a pit stop here only takes about 22 seconds.
So, using that math, losing 2.5 seconds, well, let's call it 2 seconds over 14 laps, that's 28 seconds, and since the pit stop is 22 seconds, in the end, you end up 6 seconds behind, so not worth it.
As the cars continue on the racetrack, we are working ourselves right now at the conclusion of lap number 15 in this race. So it'll be 15 laps scored complete this time back. So just about third race distance in the books. We haven't talked about the guy in that 93 car all that much, but look at the race that Chin is having in that 93 car. It's coming in a little bit of lap traffic. Easily going to get past there, but Chin just driving a storming race. And I think if you can get this gap up to 20 seconds, then I think he might go into a bit more of cruise control mode. And his fastest lap so far in this race, a 1 minute 30.573, that would have qualified him in 4th place.
Just a blistering pace, and one thing about this place, if he does build up that 20-second lead, this is one of those tracks that if you're driving at the limit and you have a lead and you start trying to cruise, then you can really get yourself in trouble. You can hit the curb wrong. You can high side yourself on the curb. And Chin real close to the outside wall entering the straightaway. Wow.
I have seen that so many times before. In fact, we had it in ISOWC competition last year. Driver just smashing the wall there. I think that was actually Nico Brown who did it whilst leading the race. So it has been a precedent. And indeed it was Nico Brandt last year in ISOWC competition, smashing the wall on the outside of the final corner, and it really does show exactly what we're talking about. In some places it really does have a street feel to it, because on those final couple of corners there is no room for error at all.
It doesn't take much, and one thing about that wall, if you brush it just a little bit, you are going to be sucked into it, and it is going to be race over. And really right now Chin's up to, he's up to 11.7 seconds, and pushing the envelope that much, wow, I don't know, big risk there.
Big risk as he goes past Kevin Crest for him, one lap down, in, side adjust. That is exactly what we were talking about there. Coming out of that corner, toe corner, he just got a little bit loose on the gas. He tried to correct it, got 2 wheels on the grass. That was half a wheel turn away from catastrophic from him there.
Oh my goodness, this is just shades. It seems whoever's been leading, whoever's been dominating this year, we said it last week that Matt Cook was going to run away with it. He didn't. It was Chin once again comes close to the wall, exiting the final corner. If I'm his spotter, I'm telling him, look, you are winning this right now. You are pulling away. Don't risk it as Chin uses up all the racetrack out of turn 1. At the same time, though, don't risk it.
Gonna check in very quickly with a battle for P9 and 10 on the racetrack. This is between Nefri Arg and Connor Cross right now. Nefri Arg, of course, running in that 04 Panther National Guard machine, and Connor Cross in the 025 car. Now, of course, Nefri's had a very up and down season, but he does seem to have improved quite a lot this year on his road course performances, running himself solidly in the top 10 right now. Connor Cross, though, he's having a great race as well, and that Clever Hire machine running in the 10th position and putting a lot of pressure right now on Nefri Arg. In fact, he gets a perfect run out of turn number 1. I think if he can just about set himself up, he might be able to get the pass, but I'm going to hopefully be able to talk about this in a moment. I'll see whether Cross gets the pass done first, but he's going to slot that car to the inside. Yeah, Alg's going to give him the line. And again, you've got to be careful coming into the corner, because you've now got a very difficult line to take through the chicane.
Oh,
and Cross wins it. That is exactly what I was talking about.
Wow, you, not very often you can say you want to talk about something and see it. We talked about that earlier in the race. Good evasion by Nefri there to avoid him and retake the spot. And for Connor Cross, good recovery, no impact, and not very often you can do a 720 here and stay in the race and only lose one spot.
Yeah, and however, he has got Chad Peterson right behind him. And one of the things I was going to mention there as well is how you have to set your passes up through turn 1, because Cross did get a very good run out that first corner. But if you get too close to the car, coming through turns 2, 3, and 4, there's no way you can go. You have to get out of the gas a little bit, and then you've lost all that momentum you gained in turn 1. And Cross actually timed that pass perfectly, but almost didn't work out for him.
Yeah, exactly, and I thought the same thing. If you get too close in the S's there, you're going to lose that run. You really have to come from a little bit farther behind to be able to make that pass. And we've got Courtney Terrell on the pits with damage.
Wow, so this is big for Courtney Terrell's championship charge, and he's got some big rear wing damage. I'm just trying to figure out what happened to him. In fact, he just actually touched the wall coming out of turn 10 as well. I think there's been 2 incidents to him in the last lap or so. Just trying to figure out exactly what happened to him, because he's had that rear wing damage for a couple of laps now. But the important thing that happened was as he came up the hill, and I think he hit the Armco barrier there. We'll get ourselves a replay. Yeah, he did. He hit
lap 16. He on that downhill braking zone that misjudged it and tapped the back of Sock Rider, and Chad Peterson also got a piece of that incident.
Yep, the 2 incidents there for Courtney Terrell. He had it down with David Sockrider down again into turn 7, and he just, he really just slammed into the Armco barrier. He was able to keep going, but then he had a second incident on lap 17 down at turn 10. So Courtney Terrell, that really now has given him a huge dent to his championship charge. A second big incident of the day as well, because let's not forget, he was battling Holgate for 3rd position, and then just went off down at turn number 9 on the racetrack. As Connor Cross also has made a big mistake there. I think that is down at turn number 10. His car got completely sideways as he came out the corner under power. Car just snapped him in, and he just missed the Armco.
And Chad Peterson behind him, I'm sure he was saying, please car, get out of the way, get out of the way, and just as he got there, Connor Cross slid off to the right. And that shows you, once you make one mistake on a road course racing is so mental. When you get off your rhythm, it is so hard to get it back, and mistake just follows mistake follows mistake.
We talked about this actually in the World Cup of iRacing yesterday on Glacier TV and iRacing Brazil, that road racing is all about that momentum. As soon as you make one spin, you know that you can spin again. Whilst you're turning consistent laps, you know, and that all comes back to the thing that we were discussing earlier with Josh Chin. He's got that 12-second gap. As soon as he gets off and he stops racing, it's always the Ayrton Senna 1998 moniker. We always talk about Ayrton Senna 1988 because it's that one race that really sticks out in people's mind. But as soon as you make that first spin, the momentum shifts in your mind. It's like an NFL quarterback who just throws an interception. They're thinking, wait a minute, I can throw another one of these very easily.
And doubt is one of the worst things that can get into a driver's mind. You're going to think, okay, I'm braking at the 200 sign. I made a mistake last time. I'm going to change it. I'm going to back it up. And when you start thinking about that, you're no longer driving. You're thinking. You got to get into that zone where you're not thinking. You're just doing. And when you start analyzing what you're doing, that's when those lapses and concentration is going to happen. As we do have a battle for 3rd. We do have a battle as here comes Matt Cook. Oh, Holgate off back on. That could have been disastrous for both of them.
Yeah, that was very, very close. And in fact, I was a little bit surprised there that Holgate didn't get a cut in the course penalty, because that is very close. And if you do cut any part of that chicane, generally, race control do deem you to have cut the course and gain a time advantage. Now, there's a little bit of courtesy perhaps that could have come into play there, because if you do keep a position when you go off the racetrack like that, sometimes drivers do let the others go by. But I think that for Cook and Holgate, they don't want this battle to be decided in the courtrooms or anything. I think they just want to continue racing. But I tell you what, Holgate has dropped off the pace recently, and Cook is right there behind him. I think actually Holgate's tyres are going off in the second stint.
And that makes you wonder, is it really worth not changing tires? We may have our answer right there. but both Cook and Holgate's cars are really all over the place. Both cars aren't handling well, and going back to when they were in the inner loop, I think for Matt Cook, I think he had no idea where Holgate was going to end up, so just slow down, because if Holgate goes off or wrecks, he's going to get the position anyway. So I really think it was a risk-reward thing there, and since they're battling for the championship, if both of them have issues here now, Joshua Chin really is going to put the hammer down on the points.
So to run for your top 5, Josh Chin leads away. James Swinbanks in the 2nd position. 3rd place is Tim Holgate, but Matt Cook right behind him. David Sockrider round out your top 5. Joe Branch, Nefri Arg, Chad Peterson, Connor Cross, and Terry Richardson round out your top 10. We have a total of 12 cars scored on the lead lap. Don't forget, every Friday on Glacier TV, the most entertaining hour of podcast radio you will hear all week long. It is the Will and Dave Show, Fridays, 4 p.m. Eastern, live and exclusive, only on Glacier TV. Now, this battle between Holgate and Matt Cook, you've got to think perhaps a little bit of that big picture racing might start coming into play here for Holgate. He knows he's got to finish ahead of Matt Cook, but if he makes an unforced error, he could lose a lot more than just that 3rd position. And let's not forget, David Sockrider, Joe Brandt, you know, if you make a mistake and get a little bit of damage, they could take positions away as well.
Yeah, good run for Joe Branch in the 6th spot. David Sockrider holding firm 5th. And, yeah, very good point there. That they are battling for the championship, but if either of them makes a mistake, they're going to fall further behind. And Matt Cook, really, don't know when he's going to make that move. He's right there, and since Holgate's been a little bit skittish all over the place, if I'm Matt Cook, he may have a run this time. Lap car in front of them, though.
He's got a car in front, and this is actually going to help perhaps Holgate a little bit, getting a little bit of that draft. I think, in fact, that is going to be the case, but Matt Cook is close, and Cook just rolled out the gas there. I did see it on the speed chart. Cook just rolled out the gas a little bit. He didn't want to make anything whilst he had the lap car, and I believe that is Kevin Crest there, who just nicely gets out of the way, but Cook all over the rear of Holgate and almost runs into the rear of him. And let's talk about that turn 7 one more time, because as soon as that tarmac changes, 2 very different grip levels, and I've always found you have to kind of brake before that transition, otherwise it's very easy to lock a wheel up.
Lock a wheel up, and we saw that earlier with Courtney Terrell, who I think he's got his car back out, but running 18th, 1 lap down. And looking at these 2 cars between Holgate and Cook, you said we wanted to talk about it later, talking about the downforce levels. I really think Holgate's car might be trimmed out for a little bit more speed, and I think Cook's car a lot better in the turns. As here we go, nope, thinks better of it, and this is big picture racing right here.
But he's got a very good run. Here he comes down to the inside, and he should get that pass done down into turn number 1. It's going to be the last of late breakers. Can Holgate? No, but they're going to stay too wide through the corner. Now, this is what you don't want to have. 2 cars running side by side through turn 2, and you see Holgate there, thinks, okay, I'm going to let you go past. You have the inside line into 2. You don't want to race too wide through turn 2, 3, and 4 ever.
It just will not work. Will not work. Great option there by Holgate lifting. And Holgate, though, really fought hard on the outside, just couldn't make the best of it. And for Holgate right now, I think he's counting down the laps to get into the pits to change those tires.
But, of course, we are still about 3 laps away from the next pit stop window. And all of these guys should have to make 2 more pit stops in this race. Now, I did talk about tyre management here. And all these guys want to take tyres on the next stop, because their stop afterwards, they're just going to take 2-3 gallons of fuel and they want to be back out on the racetrack. So, for Holgate, I'm just going to check actually see whether he took tyres on that first stint. Be interesting to see whether he tried to use that 1 set of tyres. And Nefri Arg, by the way, he's running 2 wide right now with Peterson going around the outside of him as they come down into turn number 6. I'm just having a look to see if there's any damage to Arg's car. No, he's not, but he really just allowed Peterson to go past him there down into turn number 7.
Yeah, Peterson was involved in the wreck with Courtney Terrell and lost a lot of time. Good to see that Peterson's car is still competitive. That car did take a shot. He did get sent off the track, so Good rebound for Peterson, going to move up to 7th, and still a great run for Nefriog, now relegated to 8th, but still a solid showing on the road course for him.
Running at your top 10 is Terry Mattinson. He's in a bit of no man's land right now. Now McBride running in 11th. We're going to run through the field now, presented by International Light Technologies, and we will start with your race leader. And Joshua Chin really has just been absolutely dominant in this race, Aaron. He was able to take pole position by 1.1 seconds over James Swinbanks, has led every single lap of this race, not put a foot wrong. He had a close call at about lap 10 of the race. Apart from that, been absolutely spellbinding.
It's always good when you're the race leader and us commentators haven't called your name out too much. That means you're doing everything right and you're really running away, not much to talk about. So for Joshua Chin, the fact that we haven't talked about him that much that just shows the dominance.
P2 right now is James Swinbanks. Now Swinbanks, of course, won the transfer race earlier on today, and as I said, he won the OMR Australian Racing League race earlier on as well. So he's done over 70 laps of racing at this racetrack today, and in that number 26 Aero X car really has been the clear second place car. Not had enough of Josh Chin, but has been pulling away from all those guys behind him.
Yeah, the gap between first and second, Chin to Swinbanks, is about the gap between Swinbanks and Cook. So clear second place driver, and as many laps as he's had here today, I'm sure when he goes to sleep, he'll be able to do this track pretty much without even being able to see it. He could probably drive this track blindfolded at this point in time, as many laps as he's logged here today.
Matt Cook running in the 3rd position. Of course, he was able to make that pass on Tim Holgate about 2.5 laps to go, and since then actually he's been able to pull out about a 1 second advantage over his championship rival. Now for Matt Cook, that is important because I've always said that Cook needs to have strong finishes on the road course, really put himself into championship charge, being ahead of Tim Holgate, who, let's not forget, last year he was one of the most consistent drivers throughout the entire series on both road and oval. This is a huge accomplishment for Cook right now.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Cook earlier in the season said if he just finished a road course, he would be happy. But right now, he's not just in line to finish. He's on the podium right now in front of his closest championship contender. So great run for Matt Cook. He was a little bit loose earlier. I don't know if he figured something out in the corner where they rejoined the NASCAR track out of the boot. He was really struggling there earlier in the race. I don't know if maybe his spotter or crew chief gave him some pointers about that corner, but ever since those few missteps early on, he has been solid.
And then running in the 5th position is David Sockrider. Now, Sockrider has had a very interesting day here. He was right there in the fight early on, but got a little bit of rear wing damage, and since then has dropped off the pace a little bit, but still a solid 5th place for the Club Indiana driver, and is still pulling away from Joe Branch, who's running in the 6th position. But good showing by both Sockrider and Branch. In fact, Branch has had some very good road course finishes as of late.
Yeah, very good, and Branch is another driver that on a road course is able to get his car to the finish line. And oftentimes, if you can do that, that's a very going to be a good running. And so far today, really, we haven't talked much about him, which, again, on a road course, that's usually a good sign. As we've mentioned, so-and-so's off, so-and-so's spun. Good running, solid run right now in the 6th spot.
Pit stops about to start for the 2nd time. Here comes Josh Chin. He had a 15.3 second lead. However, he lost about 1.5 seconds, I think, behind now McBride. Just caught him at the worst time possible. And in fact, he seems to be a little bit angry over the team radio there. Swinbanks also coming onto pit road. We expect to see all of these drivers in. And as I say, conclusion of lap 26, no one is going to try and stretch their fuel out by the look of it. Because Cook is, I believe, going to come onto pit road as well as Tim Holgate. I really doubt either of them are going to try and do the extra lap. The answer is going to be Holgate stays out for the other lap.
Can he do it? Now this is going to be tricky, which maybe that's why Matt Cook got around him. Maybe Holgate has backed off a little bit, but as we will see, Holgate still got out behind Joshua Chin. So Chin is still going to be the race leader, even though Holgate is doing this extra lap. And if he runs a tank dry this lap, that's disastrous.
Well, this is the thing for Tim Holgate. If he runs out of fuel, especially if he runs out towards the end of the lap, because you've got to come up the hill, and you can very easily roll back, and your race will be over. And even towards the last part of the lap, you know, even when you go downhill, then it's still a very long pit road here. By the way, Chin had no issues on his pit stop, neither did James Winbank. So 2 very good pit stops there for your top 2 drivers. Matt Cook back out onto the racetrack as well. David Sockrider, he has made his pit stop, and he is back. In fact, no, I think Sockrider stayed out as well on the racetrack. I believe Sockrider stayed out. Yeah, in fact, he did. So Sockrider also rolling the dice a little bit here. The 2 drivers, Holgate and Sockrider, both trying to do that extra lap. I tell you what, though, a lot of traffic ahead of Tim Holgate right now. He's got Dan Blake right there behind him. And, of course, also Joshua Kim. Let's see, Holgate's definitely going to have to come on pit road this time. By no way he's going to be able to do another lap, and he will peel onto pit road. Now, this could be interesting now to see how this figures towards the end of this race.
And what he's risking, he really, as we saw, he can't win this race. Joshua Chin has too big of a lead. So really what he's doing, he's gambling for maybe 1 or just 2 spots.
Yeah, but 1 or 2 spots can be huge and the championship swing.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's proven he can run that extra lap. So right now, that could be, again, I've mentioned this so much of the season, but when we get Auto Club, those 2 spots, if he can take 2nd place, you mentioned the gap between 2nd and 3rd, much greater than 3rd to 4th.
So Dan Blake pits, again, he does the extra lap. Also, you had David Sockred, Kevin Crest, Joe Branch, Neff Riard. They are all rolling the dice. Now, sorry, Matt Cook, having a look at Matt Cook, so he's been able to get back past Tim Holgate, and that is important on the racetrack right there for Cook to get back past Tim Holgate, and that was all the way there. He set that pass up perfectly. Holgate and cold tyres. Cook just slotted it down to the inside there out of turn 4. Bold pass, but I think Cook knew he had to make it happen at that particular point on the racetrack. And now, of course, he's got to drive away from Holgate over this fuel run and get as much of a gap as possible. And hope also that Holgate is sideways.
Holgate sideways, and I wonder if Holgate let Cook by last time to maybe draft a little bit. So not only is Cook trying to stretch the gap to maybe beat him out of the pits, should this go, but also at the same time, he's going to want to shake the draft so Holgate can't save fuel, and I think that's why we're seeing Holgate really almost overdrive the car trying to stay within that draft.
Yeah, and the gap flow, as soon as it goes above 1 second, then you're not going to get the advantage of the draft at all. So for Holgate, now it's going to have to be how fast can he go while saving enough fuel. His last lap was a 1 minute 51, but of course that was his outlap. We're going to compare that to the outlap from Matt Cook, of course, which was a 151.4. So very similar lap times there for the outlaps from those 2 drivers, just 0.2 of a second separating them. Although Cook did lose a little bit of time there in turn number 1, and that allows Holgate to get the draft for another lap.
Another lap, and that could be the difference. If Holgate, though, can't save enough fuel, when it comes time for lap 41, the final lap, he's really going to have to commit to a strategy. I mean, right now, he's almost going to have to commit to it. If he knows he can make it to completion, there is no reason to try to burn fuel staying with Matt Cook. So he must really need that draft, unless he knows, without a doubt, he can make it. We saw this earlier at Sebring. A lot of drivers didn't really commit to a strategy. They were playing 2 at once. If Holgate can make it, as long as he stays within 20 seconds of Matt Cook, he should do it. Unless Holgate has his eyes on 2nd place, which that gap between Holgate and 4th and Swinbanks in 2nd is 15 seconds. So Holgate might be thinking 2nd place.
And let's not forget, back at Sebring, there was a couple of drivers who were able to do it. We're going to check very quickly in on Neff Riard, because he's having a battle right now with Connor Cross. Of course, those 2 were battling a little bit earlier on, but Cross made that mistake down at the chicane. He's been able to rebound, get himself back up into the 9th position. But let's talk about Sebring, because it was the Panther guys who were especially good at saving fuel in that stint. And it all comes down to the different downforce levels. If you run certain downforce levels, then, you know, you're using more fuel to push the car around the racetrack, and you're using higher downforce. you can get away with a lower downforce setup, it seemed to be that you were able to actually save a little bit of gas. And I think some people had that in mind when they built their setup for this racetrack. Compromise a little bit on the downforce levels, but know that you can then save a little bit more gas if you need to run the alternative strategy.
And that's what I did mention earlier. I did think Holgate was running a little bit less downforce than Matt Cook, so that really could be the difference, and that would explain what we saw as this battle between Cross and Nefri. I'm sure Nefriag remembers last time he saw Connor Cross doing a 720 in front of him. So Nefri is going to probably be a little bit hesitant, a little bit nervous now, as I think Cross may have the run here headed towards the inner loop.
Yeah, and again, that was close. In fact, he's going to have that inside curve. Let's see if we can pull it off this time, as they come down into the chicane. Flips the inside nicely there, and he's going to get the pass complete that time. He had a little bit of a wiggle there, but I think he learned from last time. Connor Cross moving himself up into the 8th position on the racetrack, and that really was a textbook way of passing down at the chicane. Set him up early through turn number 1, get to the inside as soon as you can out of turn number 4, get yourself as much momentum as you can, make your life easier once you actually get into the chicane itself.
Oh yeah, you take a different line. He didn't have to really curb hop the way he did last time, so you're right, much easier run that time for Connor Cross than the previous endeavor.
So, after all is said and done, Chin still leads the way. The gap between himself and Swim Banks is now 18.7 seconds on the racetrack. Holgate 3rd, Cook 4th, Peterson 5th, then Sockrider, Branch, Arg, Cross, Matinson, they are your top 10. In fact, there's been another change as Chad Peterson has dropped down the order by my looking just a little bit. Yeah, and we believe that he had an incident with a lapped car there, which is what's dropped him down the order just a little bit.
Matt Cook damage.
Yeah, sorry, Matt Cook. Oh, this is huge. This is absolutely huge. Matt Cook is on pit road, and we'll get ourselves a replay to see exactly what happened. In fact, it was Matt Cook, we believe, who came into contact with a lap. No, he lost it all by himself down at turn number 7. And getting onto the gas, this is a pivotal moment in the championship, and Cook actually was driving away from Holgate, but Cook's race looks now to be over.
That just shows you how difficult this track is. He really didn't have to push it there. They were on different strategies. Odds were Holgate was going to have the position, and that curb there, if you just get on it a little bit too much and you apply the power, bam, car's going straight left, race potentially over, championship implications major. And
that corner, of course, we talked about the transition in the asphalt, but you also run different gears over the course of the run, depending on how much grip you have. When you've got a lot of grip, you can take that in 3rd, maybe even 4th gear. When the car's sliding around, you always want to use a different gear to just try and keep more momentum through the corner. It just seemed to be that Cook was perhaps in the wrong gear at the wrong stint of a run there. And that, we're talking inches there on the racetrack. And this is pivotal. A pivotal moment in the championship. We talk about coming down to Auto Club. This is going to be that moment you come down to Auto Club and think back, what if? Because Cook now is going to be scored outside the top 10. He's bringing his car back onto the racetrack. But this is now damage, literally damage limitation for Matt Cook right now. He's got himself some repairs to his race car. It's horribly handling right now. Worst case scenario, he'll finish 20th. But no, that car is spinning it there. He almost collects Courtney Terrell there. Matt Cook is out of the race, and I tell you what, he was very close to collecting Josh Chin there. Mighty close there. And Josh Chin's heart must have been flying in his mouth. Look at the gap there between Chin and Matt Cook.
I'm sure Josh Chin, not really going to be happy about that. He don't get much closer. We're talking just inches from getting hooked in the left rear. And unfortunately for Courtney Terrell, his bad day just went from bad to worse. And he was rebounding. He was coming back up through the field. And for Josh Chin, wow, Tim Holgate just about was given a gift right there.
I think so, and also the big gift as well goes to Josh Chin, because Chin, of course, leading this race, is going to get pretty much every single bonus point going in this race as well. Chin's back into the championship. Holgate now is going to take the championship lead coming out of this race. And last race at Milwaukee, It was Matt Cook with a bad race, but Holgate then also had a bad race. And this time by, it looks as though that Holgate, and let's not forget, his crew chief will be yelling in his ear, back the car down, bring the car home, because Cook is out of the race. Holgate right now is being gifted perhaps a championship lead, but this is catastrophic for Matt Cook. And for a driver who's worked so hard on the road courses, one simple mistake put him out of the race, and then of course he tried bringing his car back out onto the racetrack, just didn't go well for him at all. Catastrophic.
And just absolutely unfortunate there. And talking about mistakes, well, last week it was just, again, minor mistakes between both Holgate and Cook, and this week a minor mistake. I think maybe perhaps Cook, going back to the initial incident, maybe tried to shift gears on the curb. That too will get your car upset and shoot you left, and one mistake leads to a bigger mistake. Unfortunately, Courtney Terrell taken out, and you said Tim Holgate will take the championship lead. What we've seen so far, every time we make a prediction, no. So let's hope Holgate's crew chief has told him to tell, well, what you said, back it down, because this track, how many great drivers have been bit like that?
Yeah, and we talked, of course, at the start of this broadcast, Nico Brandt, a tiny moment while leading the race in ISOWC competition, hit the wall, final corner, his race was done. Of course, for Courtney Terrell, that's really hurt his championship charge as well. Yes, he was having a tough day, he had some damage, and he of course was trying to rebound himself to get himself up into the top 10. But as Peterson is running really close right now to Kevin Crest, and I believe actually not on the same lap, but Kevin Crest and Chad Peterson there. Peterson goes past down into the chicane in the broken area of the Apex car. But for Courtney Terrell, this really is now his championship over. And again for Courtney Terrell, post-Indy, bad luck for him.
Bad luck, and to win the championship, you can afford one, maybe two bad races. But now, Courtney Terrell last week also got caught up in some issues, and boy, doesn't it seem when you have bad luck, you just can't shake it. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and for the championship, it really comes down to when you have your bad luck. Joshua Chin started the season with an awful experience at Sebring, got caught up in other people's mess in Phoenix. We were almost discounting him, and now he has come back, and the bad luck now shifted to Holgate and Cook. Holgate, though, this race, he might have now shaken that bad luck bug, running third, and really now, I want to know how close he was on fuel last time. If he came in sputtering, does he now take that risk? Swinbank's almost 21 seconds in front. I think you can't take the risk now.
No, there's no point in taking the risk, because he was only doing that risk really to try and get himself ahead of Cook. Swinbanks, it was going to be mighty close between them. I mean, that gap is already 21 seconds, which is about the time you need to make that final pit stop. So either way, Holgate would not be able to take second position away from Swinbanks unless Swinbanks makes a mistake. So for Holgate, it really is now about consolidating that third position on the racetrack. Don't forget, in 1 week's time, the second part of 3 races that make up the 16th Street Racing League Triple Crown presented by iRaceForLife.org. The 16th Street Racing League Pocono 400, 160 laps around the Tricky Triangle, every lap live exclusively on iRacing Brazil. And Josh Chin, I tell you what, is dominating out front, but this race has taken a huge complexion change, and 8 drivers now just scored on the lead lap, and Nefriag has just gone down a lap as well, so now just 7 cars scored on the lead lap, and Josh Chin's driving a bit like Young O right now, just absolutely barnstorming in this race.
Yeah, Young O last season always said his goal was to see how many cars he could put a lap down, and we saw when Joshua Chin built up that lead, he was still really pushing it, and don't know, maybe he might be challenging himself the same way. But Swinbanks, though, only 18 seconds behind. That only averages out to just about half a second a lap. So Swinbanks, too, has put on a blistering pace. Just Chin has been just that much better.
And let's not forget, Josh Chin is looking to get back-to-back yearly victories in this race after taking victory here 1 year ago in that race that Young Ho had the issue in. So Chin is looking, to get back-to-back victories here at the Glen. However, there's still a lot of racing to go and some great battles still carrying on. I tell you what, actually, I'm keeping an eye out on Connor Cross, Chad Peterson and Joe Branch because they're not too farly separated as far as lap times are going. And this, I think, will go down to the wire because, of course, one more pit stop to go for all of these drivers. And the pit window again opens in about 2 laps' time. Josh Chin, we predict, will be in for fuel on lap number 39. It will be tyres only, however. And, of course, when you try and come out of pit road on old tyres with just 3 laps to go and a completely different race car coming out of pit road compared to what you've been used to, you can have a couple of incidents as you try and work yourself up the hill because completely different balance, that entire race car.
A completely different balance. And when you have an 18-second lead, though, when it comes down to those last 2 laps, he really, for Josh Chin, can take it a little bit easy. What's going to be interesting on the tire strategy is the battle that you just mentioned between Joe Branch, Connor Cross, and Chad Peterson. They're close together. They may have to push it on that outlap, and if the tires really don't like the situation,
Chin's in early.
And really, there really is no reason to push the fuel. If you pit now or pit later, it's going to be the same. He has the championship points locked up for most laps led, so why not come in early? Maybe there were some lap cars in front of him he didn't really want to contend with.
Yep, and James Swinbanks is going to actually lead a lap in this race. So the Aussie driver driving for Aero X Racing comes to the point. He takes the race lead away from Josh Chin. It'll be for a couple of laps anyway. Josh Chin in and out of pit road. He's going to come out ahead of Tim Holgate, though. And that shows just how much of a lead that Chin has. I'll tell you what, actually, he did just cut the line coming out of pit road there.
Wow, this is going to be close. Depends on what race control says. That yellow line is, sometimes the race control will issue an instant penalty. That was close, Will. That was very close.
That was very close indeed. And you talk about unforced errors. That could be a difference maker for Chin because he's been dominant in this race. Of course, if he has to make another pit stop and drive, it won't be a driving penalty, it'll be a 15-second stop and hold penalty. That could drop him behind Tim Holgate, and that would be catastrophic there for Josh Chin as he works himself through some lap traffic.
The way he just pushed through Kevin Kress, I mean, he came from a long ways back. That was a real, I have to think maybe there is a penalty because if he did have an 18-second lead, that was a big risk to the inside. So we'll find out here if Chin pits in or stays out. The moment of truth, we're about to find out.
We've got word from race control that he hasn't, but he goes very sideways there up the hill. Turn number 10. He hasn't got himself a black flag, but I tell you what, it was mighty close. And just having a look at the regulations as well, if it's either half the car, then that would be what the issue is. So he did just come onto pit road there. He came in a couple of laps early because he wanted to get past the lap traffic. And he said to me as well that he also, and this is the Banshee Autosport spotter, that he just actually put a little bit less fuel in. He wanted to make it easy on that final run, not put too much pressure on those tyres. So, Swinbanks is currently in the race lead, but he will be in this time around. And let's not forget, we've only got a couple of laps worth of racing to go at the Glen, but still a lot to play for a number of these drivers. Really interested in this Chad Peterson, Connor Cross battle, and also Nefri Arg is closing up pretty substantially to the rear of Joe Branch as well, the 2 Panther Racing drivers.
He is closing up, and Nefri's had a really solid race. Joe Branch, don't know, he was running a little bit faster in the middle portion of the race. Don't know if maybe there was some contact we missed because he was running up 5th earlier, now 7th, but Nefriag does have about 2, maybe 3 laps depending on if the leaders do catch him and maybe put them back a lap down. But yeah, Nefri is closing the gap, and that will be our battle for 7th spot.
So we expect James Swinbanks in the number 26 car to relinquish that race lead this time by as he comes onto pit road. There'll be 2 laps of racing in, and here he comes onto pit road. So 45 miles an hour for him. Let's see whether Tim Holgate's going to stay out actually, because this is going to be an interesting thing. Holgate, let's see whether he's going to actually still try the alternative strategy, because he went 1 lap longer last time. That means he can go 1 lap longer again, then he'll be able to be good to go to the end of the race. Holgate, comes past. He won't be coming onto pit road this time by. It'll be next time by for him. Swimbanks is in his pit box. It's a kind of long stop actually for Swimbanks. He is out and away. Holgate down into turn 1. It does look as though that Swimbanks is going to be able to keep the position, but it's going to be mighty close. And no, Holgate gets out just ahead. So now, can Holgate stretch it to the end?
And oh wow! And if he was saving fuel, having to lift, now he's going to have to be on it. And Swinbanks has been faster. 1.5 laps to go. Swinbanks, this is how hard do you fight if you're Holgate? You do have third guaranteed if you want it. Right now, though, you can have second if you push.
And also, how hard will Swimbanks want to push, knowing, and his bosses will be telling him, don't push the issue too hard, don't force yourself into a mistake, because there is a possibility that Holgate might be able to be good to the end. But you see there, Swimbank's going to look to the outside. I think that Holgate is saving fuel. He's running defensive lines all over the place. And Swimbank's getting a little bit sideways there. That is what I was saying. Swimbanks cannot push the issue too hard. Of course, Josh Chin is back to the race lead. He's going to come into turn number 12. This time by, the white flag will be in air for Joshua Chin for Banshee Autosport. But let's not forget, a fascinating battle to the line here between Tim Holgate and James Swimbanks. Holgate has been able to snatch second position away for the time being, but Swimbanks will not give out a round of all over the rear there as they come through the final corner. Holgate stays out. This one will go down to the wire. Holgate in second and Swimbanks looking down to the inside, not quite close enough as they come down into one.
And Holgate, we've thought maybe he had a little bit more or less downforce, but he did not get out of turn 1 all that well. Swinbanks is there, and I would be mighty surprised if Swinbanks doesn't make a move here.
Well, you see Holgate already running that inside defensive line. You can make one move and one move only. And you see Swimbanks, is he going to try and go around the outside down into the chicane? The answer is going to be no! Almost contact there. Swimbanks all over the grass. That will give second position there to Tim Holgate. Pretty much guaranteed so long as he does not run out of fuel. Now, that was a pretty crazy move there. Swimbanks, he was trying to go around the outside. And I think, just going to have a look at the replay, I think he just got the line wrong. He turned into the corner, realised there was a Tim Holgate in the way, had to take evasive action. He had to save for Swimbanks. He did a good move by running over the curve, but he's still right there behind him. Meanwhile, Joshua Chin has got 2 corners left to go in this race. We'll go right back to the back between Holgate and Swimbanks in just one moment time, because Joshua Chin, he's going to come out the final corner for the final time, and he will make it back-to-back victories at the Glen in the 16th Street Racing League. Joshua Chin gets first position. However, for Swimbanks versus Holgate, can he get enough to get himself to the line and snatch second position away? We have got one more corner for these 2 drivers. Has Holgate got enough? He'll think he's coasting as they come past the start-finish line, but Holgate will take second position. Swimbanks will come home in third.
Wow, what a run by Holgate for Swinbanks there. Really going into the inner loop. He really should have backed out early and almost done a triple double crossover maneuver to get the line out into the outer loop there. But for Holgate, both you and I, Will, said that it wasn't worth the risk to make it. He couldn't do it. He couldn't stretch it out, and Swinbanks came into the pits very conservatively. I don't think Swinbanks had any idea Holgate was on that 2-stop strategy.
I don't think so either, and I tell you what, it was mighty close those last couple of laps. We'll get ourselves a replay in just a moment of what happened there with Swinbanks and Holgate, but you're right. For Swinbanks, it was weird because he was on the outside line, and if he had held on through the chicane, just gone single file, you have to say through turn number 7, he easily would have had the inside line and been able to make the move there.
Yeah, I maybe with the car in his inside, he maybe was looking at his car and forgetting exactly where he was in the space he was in, but I really think Swinbanks, and he's going to know it, he should have had second place.
And we're getting word actually now from pit lane that Tim Holgate actually had gearbox issues and he's randomly shifting down random gears. So issues with his paddle shifters there for Tim Holgate. So actually he was driving a slightly damaged race car.
And of all the places that you don't want random downshifts, it's here with as long as you're in top gear. If it goes from 6th to 5th gear, that's gonna that could be random seconds, truly random at random intervals, a second each time.
Wow, what a crazy finish once again to a 16 Street Racing League race. Let's run through your final race results. Joshua Chin, in a time of 1 hour, 3 minutes and 41.188 seconds, takes victory by 15.7 seconds over Tim Holgate, who was able to do a two-stop strategy and somehow get himself ahead of James Swinbanks on a crazy two-stopper compared to Swinbanks and Chin's three-stopper. Now, Swinbanks tried hard, but he was not able to get that position away from Holgate. He went off into the dirty stuff down on that final lap of the race and was not able to close up that advantage one more time to Tim Holgate. He comes home in third position. David Sockrider comes home in the fourth spot with Chad Peterson in fifth. Joe Branch in sixth and Nefru Arg in the seventh position. So good showing for the Panther boys in this race. Connor Cross comes home in eighth. Terry Mattinson in ninth. And then Noah McBride rounds out your top 10. Tim Miller in 11th and Blake in 12th. Eric Davis in 13th. Brendan Lichtenberg in 14th with Kevin Kress in 15th position. Michael Armstrong 16th. Douglas E. Smith in 17th. Matt Cook in 18th. Courtney Teller 19th. Christopher Demerit rounds out your top 20. Rest of the results coming up on your screen momentarily. And you have to say, Aaron, the big factor in this race, Matt Cook, P18 only.
And, oh man, unfortunate for him. But to every side, there's two stories. For Cook, this is big, and for Holgate, what a gamble. What a move. Once again, doing a two-stop strategy, essentially stealing second place. But, oh, Matt Cook, the slightest mistake, just the absolute most minor mistake on a corner exit, that could be the season.
We will talk to your race winner, Joshua Chin. Josh, back-to-back victories, 2 years in a row, winning at Watkins Glen. What a result.
Thank you. It's nice to be able to win another race and to do it like that. It was a really, really just calm drive. There were a couple little incidents here and there. I had one there with my teammate Terry that really caught me off guard, but otherwise, a really calm, collected race, and glad to get another win here.
And, I mean, you were dominant in practice, pretty much dominant in qualifying. I mean, when you have a look at the qualifying gap between yourself and second place driver James Swinbanks, we're talking 1.1 seconds, the biggest gap we've seen on a road course all year long. And then we have a look at your fastest lap in the race, a 1 minute 30.168. That would have put you on pole position still by 4 tenths of a second. One of the most dominant drives you have to say that you've had in a very long time.
Yeah, for sure. Something about Watkins, Glen, and me just kind of clicks. It doesn't matter what car, what weather, what setup, anything. I just have a knack for this place, and I wouldn't quite say it was dominant as Barber, but it was a really, really fun race to drive.
Now, of course, leading from the front, you knew that you had to get yourself as much of a gap over yourself, Holgate, between Holgate and Cook, etc. in this race. And how much was that playing in your mind when you're starting to work through traffic? And you did have some scary moments working through traffic in this race.
Yeah, it really played in. I wasn't quite sure how the strategy was going to play out. I know that it was really close on saving enough gas to be able to make it on two stops like Tim did there. And I just wasn't able to save enough and still have the pace that I wanted. So I went ahead and went for the three-stop strategy. And it meant I had to really, really push through traffic and get that gap before the final pit stop. And thankfully I was able to do that, even with a slight mistake in having tires taken on that last stop.
And we are getting, basically, our results are changing every 30 seconds here. But the way it seems right now, it does look as though that you are in the lead of the championship by 1 point right now. And of course, this is unofficial results, but you're in the lead of the championship by our standings by 1 point over Tim Holgate. Heading over to Pocono in 1 week's time, of course, always the big wildcard race of the Triple Crown. You've kind of got to have that momentum going your way when you consider the last 5 races of this schedule.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to come out of tonight with a points lead by any means, and that's a huge surprise to me actually. Looking forward the next 5 races, it's really good, especially with Mid Ohio and Road America. Um, Even New Hampshire, Iowa, Pocono are pretty good tracks for me, and Auto Club is a track that I think a lot of what I learned at Homestead is going to apply.
Well, congratulations on the race victory. Of course, due to 16th Street Racing League's partnership with iRaceforLife.org and International Light Technologies, $10 goes to the charity of your choice. Your charity is?
And I didn't forget it this time, Orphan Secure.
Well, congratulations on the race win there. Joshua Chin, emphatic victory. Coming home in second place, Tim Holgate. Now, back at Sebring, strategy was a key component of the race at the end. I'm guessing that you put a lot of what you learned there into your strategy for today, because you were one of the only guys to make that two-stop strategy work.
Well, we really didn't have much of a strategy. I started practicing about 30 minutes before the race, put the setup together, looked at what we were at, and decided that I could probably make it work. I didn't know where it was going to fall out. I didn't think we actually had that great a pace. I've been sick most of the week, and I'm pretty drained from that race. Yeah, I mean, getting second, given how little seat time I had this week, I'm thrilled. I mean, to be neck and neck on the championship still, I was actually 54. It was a coin flip that I was going to run this race. So, and in the middle of it, I lost my downshift paddle. It's flopping freely now, so it was it was clicking to 2 downshifts several times a lap, and also wouldn't downshift in certain places, and then on the straights it would downshift fifth on me. So that was a hard race. Great job by Josh. Even if I came into this prepared, I don't think I would have been able to match his speed, and it would have come down to strategy.
Shades of Michael Schumacher in 1996 in Spain. There are the gear issues, but I mean, take us through those last couple of laps, because of course you were able to go to the end, but you had Swimbanks come out of pit road literally 1 second behind you. Incredibly close battle those last 2 laps.
Yeah, I thought I knew we had the straight line speed. Looking at practice, we had the fastest straight line speed of anybody. So pretty much I was saving gas down the back straight. And when he came out and he was right behind me, I knew if I could keep him behind me right then and there, that I could probably run a defensive line for the next 2 laps and save the gas at the same time. I had about another half a tenth of a gallon that I needed to save at the end there, and he pushed me pretty hard on the final lap. He was looking to make an outside move, and I think he just misjudged the braking point and went in the grass. And from there, I was able to save the rest of the lap for sure, and I ran out right at the line.
Well done on second place. Of course, now you move ahead of Matt Cook in the championship standings, 1 point behind Josh Chin. This is, I mean, you've run a 16th Street for pretty much every single season it's been going. Have you ever seen a championship this close coming into the back end of the season?
Oh, there's been a couple of the older seasons back, talking 2009, 2010. There were some pretty close championships between some of the road course experts and some of the oval experts. So, but this one's by far, I mean, in terms of having 3 people right there neck and neck, I haven't seen anything like this before. We've had 3 different leaders of the championship now, 4 different leaders, I think. So I think Courtney led at one point. So it's it's anybody's race, it's anybody's championship here.
And of course, next week we head over to the second of the Triple Crown event at Pocono for the 16th Street Racing League Pocono 400. I think of the Triple Crown events, this really is the wild card one. What are you looking forward to there?
Oh, I'm looking towards the success we didn't have at Indy. I suspect we'll be pretty fast there. We're going to be working on the car some. I really feel like, while it was a great race at Indy, we let one slip away. I think we had a great car to potentially win that, and hopefully we'll be able to take the top spot at Pocono. At least someone on the team should be able to do it.
Well done. P2 there for Tim Holgate in the Panther car. And then, of course, in third position, Mr. James Swimbanks. How you doing, buddy?
I'm worn out after that one.
You won out after that one. You've done a total of what? I can't really do math very well, but over 100 laps worth of racing here at the Glen today.
Yeah, I know. Long day, but good times. Good times. That was a really good race.
Well, you started in P2, which is where you ran for most of the race. You did lead a couple of laps as Chin came onto pit road a little bit early, and then your race really started in those last couple of laps.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like it kind of started in that last stint because I just had the worst luck with traffic, and I really feel like if I'd had a little bit more with getting a little bit more luck with regards to that, then I could have been clear of Tim coming out of the pits. But you know, all credit to him, man. He was able to make that saving work, and we were talking about it before the race. It might have been an option, but I mean, for me, I couldn't. I don't think I'd be able to pull something like that off. I've never had too much success with that in the past, so. Just had to go for it, and it's the way the coins landed, eh?
The way the coins landed, indeed. But pretty interesting battle those last couple of laps. Of course, you tried making that pass on the white flag lap on the outside into the chicane. Take us through the motions there, because it looks as though you had to take a little bit of evasive action. In hindsight, would you perhaps tried a different corner to make that pass?
Oh yeah, I definitely. I don't even know what I was trying to do. Like I suppose I was trying to put pressure on him. And I mean, it's definitely not the right place to do it. He was easily faster down the straight. And when I turned in, I realized that he was still going straight ahead, and I didn't want to hit him, so I kind of locked the brakes up and just went straight on and got a slow down penalty. So I couldn't really do much about it after that. But yeah, I probably should have saved it for the boot in hindsight. But you know, it is what it is. It was still good fun.
Well, congratulations on P3 in the Aero X racing car. I'm going to hand it over to Aaron very quickly, and he's going to have a chat with David Sockrider.
Okay, David Sockrider, another good performance. Another top 5, 4th place. How was your race?
Pretty good. The beginning was interesting. We were just kind of, staying in line and racing. I had Chad pass me once, and then I passed him right back. Then from there, after the first stop, it was I don't know. I haven't looked at the replay to see what happened, but I felt a big hit from behind, and then I saw Courtney and Chad kind of going off into the wayside.
Yeah, that was a close moment there. And was the racing out there close quarters? Seemed close from the broadcast there.
I wasn't too bad. I mean, everyone was pretty respectful, giving each other space. I was running a low downforce set as well, so I was braking a little earlier for that turn than I think they were ready or expecting me.
And besides that one moment, any other close calls out there today?
Not really. After that point, I just kind of put it in cruise mode because I didn't want to push it and see if I was really, really broken or not. So I just went for the 2-stop strategy and just kind of pedaled the car everywhere.
And finally, anyone you want to thank after this great run today?
Oh, I don't know. I'm pretty much did most of all my work myself. So it's we'll soldier on to the next one.
Well, there's nothing wrong with thanking yourself. Good run, 4th place.
David Sockrider thanking David Sockrider for his performance in the David Sockrider car. Now we're going to talk to the most entertaining person in the entirety of the 16 Street Racing League. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Nefriog.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Will. You know what? I appreciate being the most entertaining driver in the series. I sure as hell wish I was the best race car driver because, man, this field is stacked.
Field is stacked, but you came home in 7th place here today, and I tell you what, you had a great battle with your teammate, Joe Branch, in a number 4 car at the end of the race there in the battle for P6.
Yeah, you know, Joe Branch is probably the most underrated driver in this league. He can win a race on any kind of track we go to, and for whatever reason, since the day we both started racing, we've been attached at the hip, man. I can't tell you the number of races that come down to me and Joe fighting like hell, and he's always clean, and he's a hell of a teammate and somebody I certainly appreciate having on this squad.
Now, you had to come from P17 in this race, and at the start, big hairy moment there, because you were seeing the melee going on ahead of you as the cars were coming through turn number 1.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I had to change my diaper twice this race. I came through turn 1 and really wanted to take it conservative at the start, and oh man, I saw smoke, thought a bomb had gone off, and I looked and there were 2 cars sideways, pretty much blocking the track. So I'm not one that prays necessarily, but somebody took care of me there, and then later in the race, Connor passed me and got sideways directly in front of me, and I don't know, I normally don't have a lot of luck, but really fortunate on those 2 instances to get through.
And then, of course, next week we go to Amish country. We go to Pennsylvania, Pocono for the Pocono 400. Now, I know you love Pocono. You're looking forward to trying to take victory here, because victory has kind of eluded you twice this season. Are you looking to finally get that W next to your name?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just so damn competitive. To me, it's like if I don't win, I don't even care what number's next to where I finish. You know what I mean? And especially going into Pocono, excuse me. I think Niles Anders is the man. He's Mr. Pocono, and he has been for a long time. I know he's already been testing there a little bit, and Tim Holgate builds fast race cars better than anybody I've ever known. So you combine those 2 with all the other powerful guys we got on this team, and anything can happen next week.
Finally, what's your view on the city of Omaha?
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest with you, I ain't never been to Omaha. I know more about Omaha from the Counting Crows than I do from the way Peyton Manning calls his cadence. But definitely happy to see Peyton make the Super Bowl today. And I tell you what, anybody that's a race fan that's watching the game that's going on right now, keep in mind that Jim Harbaugh's a part owner of Panther Racing. So let's see if we didn't win Indianapolis 500 this year, but maybe Captain Comeback can get us in the Super Bowl, and we can cheer him on to getting his first ring.
Omaha! There you are. Congratulations, P7 there for Mr. Nefri Arg. I'm going to talk to another Indianapolis resident who came home in the 11th position, Mr. Tim Miller. You've had some great luck on road courses this season.
Hey, well, yeah, it's been a long day. I'm originally from Indianapolis. I live in Texas now, but it was a great day. I appreciate you guys running everything.
Now, you've had a pretty interesting race as well, coming from P22, again, right there in the thick of the action down at turn number 1. How crazy was it navigating for that first lap?
I was pretty lucky. I was able to slow down briefly. I didn't have to slam on my brakes, and then I just stayed right in the middle and made it right through there.
And then you got yourself settled into a rhythm. Now, you had some great battles with drivers up and down the field here today. And it was pretty tough going in that mid-pack throughout the race. Very close between you and a number of other drivers.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. I was trying to catch Niall for the 10th spot there, but I just couldn't do it. He just kept pulling away.
And of course, in 1 week's time, we do head over to Pocono. Sorry. What are you looking forward to when we go to the Tricky Triangle in 1 week's time over in Pennsylvania?
Well, I'm an independent. I don't, on purpose, I don't have time to work on set slots, so I just hope to not be too slow for everybody out there, and hope to get out of the way when you fast guys come by. But I'm looking forward to it.
Well done. Tim Miller coming home in P11 there in the number 91 car. And actually, that's something we should talk about very quickly before we go off air. A lot of independent drivers doing very good jobs here today. And a number of the smaller teams, again, well represented up and down the field. We talk about David Zuckrider, of course, coming home in P4. Connor Cross in the 025 car coming home in P8. Tim Miller in 11th. Dan Blake in 12th. Some very good performances by independent drivers.
Yeah, and that adds to just adds to this league, because if you can finish a top 5, especially as an independent, that is something to be super proud of, be amazingly proud of. And at Pocono next week, if somebody can hit on something that one of the teams doesn't, and that can't happen, well, next week's wide open at the Tricky Triangle. Attrition there oftentimes high, so maybe an independent can steal one next week, part of the Triple Crown, and that would be quite the story.
It will be, and I tell you what, once again, 6 different teams represented in the top 6. Banshee Autosport first, Panther Racing second, In fact, 5 different teams. Aero X in 3rd. You've got David Stockrider in 4th. Then you've got Broken Arrow in 5th. And then, of course, you've got then 2 Panther guys in 6th and 7th. But what a competitive field we're having, both team-wise and also in the championship. 5 teams in the top 5. And the points gap now between P1 and P3, 3 points going into Pocono.
In terms of entertainment and drama, I don't know if this season could get any more interesting. This is going to come down, I think round 2, round 3, that it's going to come down to the final laps of Auto Club. And thankfully, I think for once I might actually have a prediction right. And next week, who knows what's going to happen.
And of course, of all the Triple Crown events, Pocono is often the wild card of the 3 because the track is so difficult. And 3 different corners, of course, modelled on 3 different, well, 3 different racetracks. You know, turn 1, modelled off Trenton Speedway. Turn 2, modelled off IMS. Turn 3, modelled off Milwaukee. You cannot set your car up to work perfectly in all 3 corners. It's always a bit of a balancing act between the 3. And we will see guys be faster in turn 1. Some guys be faster in turn 3. Plenty of action. And Pocono is always one of the best races we call every single year.
Best races, and what's really fun, as you said, you can have people faster on one end, so you make a pass, and then maybe turn 2 isn't quite right for the car, so you have a pass, and maybe then turn 3 is completely different. And one thing we will mention next week, turn 3, so often, even the best drivers on here can have issues. They make a pass on the inside, the car on the outside is holding firm, car on the inside drifts up, and I'm sure we're going to say contact out of turn 3 next week. And for those running in the championship, that's where they are going to have to tread very lightly.
Indeed. Don't forget, the Will and Dave show is every 4 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. It's live, it's exclusive on Glacier TV. The most fun you can have with your pants on whilst listening to 2 random people and their friends chat on the internet. The Will and Dave show, Fridays, 4 p.m. Eastern, live and exclusive on Glacier TV. And that, unfortunately, now ends our coverage of the 10th round of the 16 Street Racing League here on Glacier TV. Josh Chin today was absolutely dominant, and he's been able to take the championship lead, jumping ahead of both Tim Holgate and Matt Cook. Cook had issues. He could only finish here today in the 18th position after an unforced error while charging and in fact being ahead of Tim Holgate. Holgate, crazy strategy worked out for him. He had a great battle at the end with James Winbanks and is able to move up into 2nd place in the championship. Top 3 drivers, they're separated by just 3 points. Courtney Tell had a bad day. He's out the championship running for the time being, but the story of the 16 Street Racing League is that anything can happen on any given race. And I tell you what, there is still more twists and turns to go in this championship, and we start in 1 week's time at the Tricky Triangle. We head over to Long Pond, Pennsylvania, for the 16 Street Racing League Pocono 400, powered by iRaceForLife.org. We'll be live on air at 7 p.m. Eastern, as we are each and every week, with full coverage of the race, all 160 laps live. And I tell you what, of all the Triple Crown races, this arguably is going to be the big wildcard race. Yes, of course, Indy special, but this is special in its own way. Someone's going to get victory, someone's going to make a charge for the championship. We don't know who it's going to be yet. Will it be Panther? Will it be the Banshee Autosport guys or the Aero X guys? Who knows? We'll find out in 1 week's time. This has been an iRacing Brazil presentation of the 16th Street Racing League from upstate New York, Watkins, Glen International. For myself, Will Vincent, from Aaron Lykin and Raphael Sancon cameras, we'll talk to you all in 1 week time. It's going to be crazy. Bye-bye.